If you're after a cheap, relatively capable dual cab ute, this could be just what you're looking for. It's called the GWM Cannon XSR, and it's kind of a trim level targeted at vehicles like the Ford Ranger Wildtrak X and even the Toyota Hilux GR Sport. You've got all of the typical trimmings like a black sports bar, black wheel arch extensions, making it look tougher and more muscular. You've also got a nice chunky side step in black. And off-road Cooper tyres. So these measure 265/65, mounted on black 18-inch wheels. You do have red painted brakes behind there, but they're not Brembo or anything like that. They're just sporty looking brakes. Prices start at just $52,990 drive away, which is definitely very affordable compared with those equivalent rivals. When you start to dig into it a bit deeper though, you do see some signs of where, yeah, you're not paying that premium, so you're not getting those upper or premium style features. But there are some definite good qualities about this too. Like check out the little step integrated into the bumper bar there. That's a nice touch. So you can just shove your foot straight in there and climb up into the back. You've also got gas struts for the tailgate, which even some of the premium or the more expensive rivals don't even have that, so it doesn't go crashing down. But if you push this little button here, you get a step that folds out, so you can climb into the back as long as you've got good leg muscles and get into the back nice and easy. I think that's a really cool feature because when you've got a ute, you're jumping in and out of the back all the time, so having a step there. And it is nicely gripped as well. It's got like sort of a sandpapery finish to it, so you're not going to slip on that too easily. Yeah, if you're climbing up through that or using the side step there, which does have little grip spots, I suppose. They're not rubber or anything. It would be nice if they were rubber or had some of that stuff on them just to make sure. But yeah, having them there is way safer or less cumbersome than using the tyre there and climbing up over the side. The XSR also comes with a snorkel, so you can go off-roading. It does have 228 millimeters of ground clearance, which is not that impressive for this type of trim level. But again, you've got to go back to that price. So it's really a big factor when you're weighing it up. How much are you going to use it off-road? If you just want to go camping and things and hit some puddles and mud and so on, and not get bogged or be embarrassed of getting bogged, this will get you through, no problem. But if you are looking to do some proper hardcore off-roading, I think some of the rivals are probably a little bit better. Mainly because the ground clearance in this is not very good, but also the powertrain is not that impressive. It's quite an old engine, or it's at least got old-ish engine specs. It's a 2 litre, it's actually got a gas strutted bonnet as well, which is again pretty unique for this class. But yeah, it's just a 2 litre turbo diesel 4-cylinder producing just 120 kilowatts and 400 Newton meters. It's not a very modern or advanced engine. It passes Euro 5, which is starting to get a bit old now. Even in Australia, Australia is always a bit behind, but Euro 5 is definitely a bit behind for overseas markets. And yeah, the acceleration and the performance is pretty poor, as you'll see later on. Not that it matters in vehicles like this. You don't want something that's fast, or you might not care about something that's fast. But I think the level of performance that this brings is just under what is normally acceptable. Like to pull out onto a highway or a busy side street or something like that, this just doesn't have the response or the get up and go power to get you through safely. You end up sitting there for a long time, and even getting onto the highways and things like that, you've really got to put your foot in, but it doesn't really do much anyway. Inside is quite nicely done. I don't mind this interior. I think it's got a nice mixture of materials, leather style trim, even on the door trim there, with diamond stitching, and it's got this sort of carbon fiber look type of trim, and then metallic silver all around the touchscreen, which is better than chrome in my opinion. And even down here on the center console, it's all just metallic silver with some more of that carbon fiber stuff. It's better than chrome in my opinion because it can reflect the light quite badly in some models. Even just a little chrome button on the side here on some models, it just gets that right angle of the light and it just pierces you right in the eyeball. It's not the nicest. We'll start it up. The touchscreen is pretty decent as well. It's got fingerprints all over it. Sorry about that. Normally I clean these up a bit better, but once it loads up, eventually, we can see some of the apps and things when it's ready. Take your time. It's all right. I'll wait. There we go. So here you've got your main apps. Then you can push this home button and it brings you back to this page. If you want to change the car settings, you just push this button down here and it will bring up the safety system. So this has got lane keep assist and all that sort of stuff. I turn that off every time I drive the car because it drives me a bit nuts. Just the beeping, like this is not the only vehicle that does it, but all these new models, they've got all this active safety stuff, or so-called active. I think it's beyond active. It's just intrusive safety stuff. It doesn't actually, in my opinion, make the vehicle any safer. You've even got wireless phone charging, a few different charging options there, USB and a 12-volt socket. You've even got a fully digital instrument cluster. And you can change around the different views, different displays and whatever using this button here. You've got a few different options. You can show the media and whatever. Yeah, I think this interior is really well done. So we'll get in the back and see what the back seat's like. Straight away I notice climate vents, which is great. You've also got a universal power socket down there. So I'm pretty sure that will take an Australian standard household plug. You just turn it upside down and it will figure itself out. You've also got a little USB port there. Pockets in the back of the front seat and a flip down armrest. And I do like that it has the baby seat anchor points behind the seat. So you've got them just there rather than having what some utes have is a sort of loophole in the middle there, and you've got to feed the child seat belt through here and then over to the side. I think that's just a bit of a battle sometimes. Putting baby seats in and out of cars is never fun as it is. Cabin spaces, it's not actually that big for some reason. And I'm short, I'm only 170 centimeters. So I notice if the ceiling is getting pretty close because it never usually is. Whereas that's actually, it's not too far away. But there is a bit of a cutting in the ceiling there, if you can see that, where your head can go. So it's not too much of a problem. The main reason for that is because it comes with a sunroof, which is definitely quite rare for the dual cab ute segment. So you've got a bit of a trade-off there. If you want the sunroof, then you might lose some space, or at least a perception of space. It's just that ceiling seems quite close to me just there, although my head actually slots into that bit. So it's pretty good. I think if you want a sunroof, that's what you've just got to put up with, I guess. You've got grab handles as well. That's always great because these sorts of vehicles, they boast off-road capability, and the last thing you want is just, passengers banging heads and things in the back, so they can hold on there. And the trim is pretty nice in the back too. You've got that diamond stitching, leather, and then this kind of fake wood on the main door bit there. But yeah, I think you really got to consider the price of this. You do get a 7-year warranty as well, which a lot of the rivals don't get anywhere near that. They're mostly 5 years. So yeah, you've really got to think about that. But in terms of the driving, I think is where it's the biggest letdown. In most dual cab utes, it's the rear suspension that's usually the concern because it's quite rigid and tough, ready to take a payload. But once you fill it up with things in the back, it sort of works itself out. With this model though, I'm finding the front suspension is the problem. It actually bottoms out when you go over speed bumps and things at normal speeds. I mean, this is a pretty rough and tough looking car, or vehicle, so you should be able to hit a speed bump at a reasonable speed. But even at very slow speeds, it sort of bounces up, then comes back down and crashes and actually bottoms out. So we saw a similar problem with the GWM Tank 300, where the front end was bottoming out to the point of causing the rear wheels to pop in the air during hard braking. I don't think this will do that because it's got a much longer platform there. I don't think the rear wheels will actually pop off the ground, but yeah, we'll go for a drive and I'll show you what I mean. Like most dual cab utes, this is quite big, and we'll see if we can feed it around this little tricky roundabout. I don't think it's going to make it. Yeah, the turning circle's not the best. I've taken other SUVs and things around here with no real problem, but it is quite tight and it actually wraps right around. But at least we do have the surround view camera system that activated because I went into reverse, and it gives you a good view of what's going on out there. The fuel consumption, I'm averaging 9.4, which is exactly the official rating. That official rating, 9.4, is pretty high, even for this class. So most are around the 8s, or even the low 8s and high 7s, or even mid 7s. I think the Mitsubishi Triton. So yeah, 9.4 is not the best, particularly as this is just a 2-litre engine. It's not a big capacity engine, so maybe that's a sign that you do need to, you know, give it some, and it's under a bit of pressure a lot of the time. It is very smooth and quiet though. I'll definitely give it that. It just hums along. It doesn't clatter around. I guess that's partly attributed to the fact that it is a small capacity engine, so there's not much combustion, not much explosion going on compared with some of the larger capacity rivals. But yeah, it's pretty smooth. It just sort of thrums along in the background. It's not until you rev it right out that it starts to sound a bit strained, but even up to sort of 3,000 RPM, it's just a hum, and then yeah, beyond that it turns into a bit of a clattery spray. The ride comfort it's just not the best. It really isn't, even for a ute. When I picked up this GWM, I just dropped off the 70 series Land Cruiser single cab Workmate, which is the most, you know, rugged version of the Land Cruiser you can get, and it rode better than this. It felt more comfortable than this. I did have the tall profile skinny tires on it, which probably helped a bit, but the front end on this is just, yeah, it needs some attention in my opinion. We're going to hit some speed bumps in a minute. I'll just show you what I mean. Okay, we'll go down here with some speed bumps. This is La Perouse in Sydney, if you're wondering. It's quite a picturesque little spot, and I think they filmed Mission Impossible 2 down here at this bunker. If you're a bit of a movie goer, it's not the best sort of speed bump, but yeah, that felt like it actually bottomed out just going at that speed, 30 kilometers an hour. It has a real jolt at the end, because I've hit other bumps and it's still pretty rigid, but then it just has this definite bottoming out feel to it. Sort of jolts pretty hard. It's obviously not showing on camera very well. It's hard to convey what I'm feeling, but yeah, like that, it just boo, 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 and it sort of keeps bouncing as well. I just think it needs further tuning, or perhaps some better dampers. It's like yeah, just then again, like it's jolting at the very end of its stroke. It feels like it's, you know, done 200,000 kilometers. The suspension element anyway, not the rest of the vehicle, but the suspension, yeah, it just really crashes and jolts. I'd like to know what's going on there. Other than that though, yeah, this is a pretty easy vehicle to drive. It's quiet, as I said, and it's got some good features, some thoughtful features, like that step at the back and the step in the sides of the bumper bar. Pretty good technology here. I don't really have any complaints with the way the technology seems to be working. Although it hasn't picked up my phone, even though I've connected it with Bluetooth, it hasn't picked it up since I've been in the car for some reason. I don't know why it just dropped out, but I have been fiddling around with the cable for Apple CarPlay as well. So maybe it's just, since I unplugged that, it forgot my Bluetooth listing, if you like. But yeah, other than that, the technology is pretty good. The dash and everything is all quite nice. There's no nasty and cheap feeling materials in here. But yeah, the performance and the front end suspension is probably the biggest question marks, or the biggest red flags. If you don't care about that sort of thing, or if you're willing to just put some upgraded dampers in there, I think this would be quite a nice vehicle for a workhorse. If you just want something that's on a budget, that's still capable, it's got the diff locks and things, the rugged tires and the snorkel and all that, but you don't want to spend too much, and you've got the good 7-year warranty, then yeah, I can see why many people would buy this. We'll head out now onto some dirt and see what it goes like, nothing too crazy, and then we'll do the performance testing. We have had a bit of rain here last night, and in fact it is kind of still spitting now. But we're going to do the usual loop. So down this way, there's a few humps and bumps and things, and we'll come out through this section here. Along the way, there's a couple of mud sort of bog holes that we'll go through. So it'll be interesting to see how these off-road tyres handle that. And then there's a steep sort of uphill and downhill section. Before we get started though, this video was sponsored by Upmove. Upmove is a removalist company that specialises in vehicle transport. Say you've just bought a classic car from Sydney and you live in Melbourne, don't worry about wasting your time ringing around all different removalist companies. Upmove is an online portal that connects a number of vetted and checked removalist companies. You just put in your job details on Upmove's website and its network will start competing for your work, so you know you're getting a good deal. It's a piece of piss. Head over to upmove.com.au for more information. It's linked in this video and in the description below. All right, let's see if we can get this thing nice and muddy. We'll put it in 4H, just so we've got 4-wheel drive. There are a few different other modes here. You've got sand, snow and mud, but I think we'll just leave it in 4H. I've also got the traction control turned off, just because I don't want it to bog down in the mud. Now along here we've got a few different little ruts and things. You probably can't see them on camera, but I've driven a number of different SUVs and utes along here, so I can gauge how this is going to behave. I mean, it's different weather each time, so the ground could be a bit soggier, but it's not too bad at this speed. There's a little hump here. Yeah, it did kind of bottom out the front end a little bit. You can just feel it like hitting not the bump stop, but just thudding a little bit, and just the movement stops, in other words. And we've got two deep little sections here. They don't look like it on camera, but yeah, they go quite deep. Just scrubbed slightly then, I think. It might have been just a bit of mud flicking up. I couldn't feel anything anyway, so it must have been that bad. Yeah, the suspension definitely feels overly rigid, and not just the back, I mean the front. Usually we have stiff suspension at the back, but it's in the front in this. Just doesn't feel quite right. No problem getting through that. It didn't scrub out either, so that's good. Definitely a bit slippery. Nice. Yeah, this engine is not too bad when you're just driving around in the bush like this. Heading out here on the highway, there was this big long uphill section, and yeah, it did struggle a bit. I had the cruise control on, and the cruise control speed actually dropped down, so I had to actually apply the throttle myself to keep up to the traffic speed. But out here, it doesn't seem to make any difference. So if you've got a farm or something like that, just want a cheap ute to run around in, I can understand why this would be popular. I just fixed that front suspension, I think. Coming out here, I can definitely feel a lot of the jolts and things. But yeah, look, it's having no problem at all going up here in the wet. Even with the traction control turned off, I'm not relying on any electronic gizmos, it's just mechanical grip pulling me through. So I'll see how it goes through these deep ruts. Scrub just slightly at the front. Yeah, again, yep, a couple of times. Yeah, it's scrubbing out a bit there. But it's not too bad, it's still pushing through with no problem. It's just skimming the bottom just slightly. Overall though, yeah, I can see this is quite a capable vehicle. It just probably needs some new suspension. I'd fit some different springs in there, maybe even raise the front up a little bit, and the back for that matter, just to give you a bit more clearance. But yeah, overall, considering its price, its entry price, it's quite good. And that's the thing, this is a budget focused model, so you can't expect proper class leading performance on and off the road. All right, let's head out now and do the performance testing.